chatting.
Yeah.
So we're on record. It's all on the
Very
record
good.
now. How are you?
Alive.
I haven't seen you in ages.
Been a while. Been a while.
Been a while, and your life has changed dramatically, obviously, in the meantime. So I'm going to do just a little tiny,
like everyone's,
yeah, like everyone's. I'm going to just do a tiny intro because people don't like saying how fabulous they are. They hate doing it, and you're a fantastic entrepreneur. I'm without a doubt. Very successful restaurateur. Is that the word? Pablo Picantes.
I suppose, yeah.
Pablo
That's correct. Yeah, Pablo Picantes.
Yeah, fabulous place and very successful. And am I right in thinking you opened another one just recently, Colm?
Yeah, so back in November, October, November, we opened a little hidden margarita bar called El Silencio. El Silencio means the silence in Spanish. Okay. And it was a little hidden. So it was specializing in margaritas and tacos. Still within the Mexican space, but more of this sort of punk rock dive bar take on Mexico rather than the sort of Mexican wrestling brightness and color.
And Colm, where is it?
Fiesta that we do with Pablo, very different, much darker. So there's a hidden door in one of the Pablo Picantes. So if you find the hidden door in Pablo Picantes, you can get in. That's really, it was very simple.
Oh, what a lovely idea.
Very, very small space. There was room for, if you didn't factor in social distancing, there was room for close to 50 people. But I'd say if we were to reopen anytime soon, that would be considerably different. Yeah.
Okay, so what's going to happen? So in your business now, you're obviously in the restaurant business. Tell me where your head is on all this. I mean, well, first of all, I love the way your mind works. I loved your Facebook post last week when you had about all the different characters in our world at the moment, from Fauci to, we're now experts on every doctor, every scientist, every politician. Including Donald's team, but very funny. You're very funny. I like the way your brain works. But you've a very sharp mind. What's your view on all of this?
It's still fluid, as they say in the media. So there's an awful lot still going on. I think, you hear people talking about adapting and changing, and what we're doing now is taking over from face-to-face meetings or from normal conferences or these ways of communicating. It's very difficult to do that when you're talking about food and alcohol, because people go to restaurants for a few reasons. There's obviously the food is a huge part of that, and it's generally one of the central reasons why you would pick one restaurant over another. But then along with that, you're going there for the ambience, for the space, for the other people you might meet, for the relationship you might have with the staff working there. So all these factors are now suddenly side. So it wasn't to stay closed for the time being because there was a few reasons for it. Firstly, we wanted to do our bit for keeping the movement of people to a minimum. I maintain burritos are not an essential part of this pandemic. As much as food is, I don't think restaurant food is an essential part, and that's something that a lot of my colleagues would disagree on. I think if we all hunkered down, if every single person in the country hunkered down for 2 weeks, this would all be over. But because with people who have to move to here, there, and everywhere, it just keeps the virus, which is like electricity, tipping along and infecting new people. And that's that's the reality of how this works. So we all have to bow down to what this virus is. And yeah, for me, I'm surviving on the $350 a week from the government quite happily, because the only place you can spend it is in supermarket. No more holidays. There's no more fancy dinners. There's no more trips to the pub. So you're spending your day. For me, I'm spending my day. I'll go for a run in the Phoenix Park after this. I go for a run every day. I try and stay fit. I'm reading a lot more. I was lucky enough to buy a stack of books before the lockdown kicked in, and yeah, if we all just stayed in one place, this would all be over. But going back to your question about restaurants, I was listening to Dennis Desmond yesterday on the radio. He's the owner of MCD, and he has the same stoical approach that, you know, there simply will not be any more live music for 2020. I think in the case of restaurants, yeah, we'll probably try and gradually open 1 or 2 locations for takeaway only. Possibly next month, maybe Bagot Street might reopen, where we do either delivery, collection, or takeaway. But that will still be a very small part of what our expected sales would be. The other thing I have to consider is my entire staff are receiving the emergency payment like me, and in some cases that's because they're students, they wouldn't even be working the required number of hours to make €350 into their hand every week. So it's very difficult to expect them to forego that payment while at the same time putting themselves into the line of fire where they might potentially pick up a virus. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking around for the perspex screens.
I saw that.
To place in front of the
staff,
between the staff and the customers. I'm going to have.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, my battery.
Okay. I have at the end.
So I'm going to have to start also rotating downwards.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at the end of my road, we have a beautiful theatre called the Viking Theatre. It's very popular, small, tiny theatre. It's really, really good. It's packed out all the time. It holds, I think, about 45 people. It's like really popular. And I was just talking to Laura the other day, the girl who owns it, and she was saying that Andrews Lane Theatre had done a study, and I think this is the fact. They have about 300 people at Andrews Lane Theatre, and if they applied the social distancing rules, it'll take about 50 people in Andrews Lane. And she was saying her place only takes 45, and so if you work that back, you know, there's just no, like, how are you possibly going to fit people in to a tiny place like that? And your places are small. How, in God's name, are you going to make money as a restaurant going forward with social distancing rules coming in? You have to change how you do things.
Good question. Probably a lot of the work myself I'll have to take over from. As I said, it's very difficult to just suddenly change the format of restaurants over a 2 or 3 month period. You know, there's sure, Deliveroo and delivering to people's homes will increase, but nothing replaces the ambience and the experience of eating out, like eating in the venue. You know, so I see certain restaurants are trying to do their best to, you know, offer you know, a close replication of it through delivering a box and of pre-prepared items, but you still need to do some of the cooking yourself, and that's good and it's innovative. I think there's a couple of things that'll probably start to impact on that. Certainly, some of it being that the disposable income of individuals will start to drop as the social welfare emergency payment starts to be phased out. Excuse me while I just charge my phone here, Debbie.
Colm, do you think? I mean, there's obviously going to be massive analysis now on all of our behalf. Did we do it right? Did we do it wrong? How many lives could we have saved? Did Bojo do it right, do it wrong? Is there any point in us all launching our energy into all of that analysis? Would we not be better off all getting together as a collective and trying to be more positive and I mean, we're going to obviously have to make changes going forward, all of us in our lifestyles, me included. So like, is it, you know, already you can hear the change in the radio. We're not so worried about staying in now. Now we're looking at the next level, which is, was it right? Was it wrong? I think Leo was in meetings yesterday or today about analysis all over Europe about whether, you know, who did it right, who did it wrong, who has the most deaths. Of course, a certain team of people have to do that so that the next time it happens, that we know better, and our nursing homes, etc., aren't.
Yeah, I think, as I said,
But like, what do you think? What changes do you think we should all be making in our lives going forward?
It's a big question. I'm personally, one of my bigger concerns in the last 5, 6, 7 years has been the planet and the environment and climate change and the harm we're doing to it. So I think the big pause and the big slowdown, if it can bring us some benefits as far as reducing the climate change, the effects of climate change, and greenhouse gases and burning of fossil fuels, I think that'll be a big win. I think if we can cut out the terrible practice of these wet markets in I won't name in China and other Asian countries, I think that'll be a big win as well. As far yeah, I don't know how productive it is to say we should have done this, we should have done that. I think the clear simple action to stop it is just non-movement and everyone staying put. I think if everyone bought 2 weeks worth of groceries and literally stayed in their homes without moving, but that would include everyone, include the essential workers, everyone, it would be stopped in 2 weeks, but that's obviously not practical. Mm-hmm. I think the only critique I'd make of our own government was probably the continuance of inward flights, particularly from northern Italy, which was a hotspot at the time. But there was no precedent for that, and I think we're bound by our EU membership to allow freedom of movement and that sort of stuff. But certainly, I think as we come out of this, that freedom of movement will have to be curtailed. Mm-hmm. Between Austria, if they've closed the borders, and I think it's Austria and Belgium.
I was watching David Attenborough last night on CNN. Christian Armanpour was interviewing him, and he was in his house cocooned, and he said the most amazing thing. He said that in his lifetime, the wilderness in the world, on the planet, has gone from 65% of the planet to 25% of the planet just in his lifetime. And he was saying, like, obviously he is the god of it, and we've all adored him and watched him. And he was saying that unless we do something really, really dramatic and fast now, that we're really in trouble, Well,
this is it. And I think I saw a nice note there somebody posted on social media yesterday about when we start to come out of it, that if we could all stay within Ireland and do our vacations within Ireland, do our holidays, do our we've all been kind of legging it off to go skiing in Italy or go to Spain or go to traveling here, traveling there, and that's part of the problem is the high number of flights. You can get flights now for half nothing. So we've been on this path for some time with low fares, airlines, and the ability to go wherever you want, whenever you want. I think when I was growing up, when I was younger, flights were very expensive. I got my first flight. I think I was on my first flight when I was 16. Mm-hmm. So flights were a luxury, and now suddenly they become a kind of an expectation, a kind of a right. People expect to be able to fly wherever they want all the time, and that's kind of what's got us into this situation with high burning of fossil fuels and the likes of that. So I think easing out of this, I think if people just move within their own countries for a while. I'm doing it here locally. I'm starting to appreciate the Phoenix Park. I'm starting to appreciate the Memorial Gardens around the corner. I'm buying locally in Stoneybatter from the greengrocers and Lilliput stores, and you realize that you can make as much of what you have within your own 2 kilometers. Equally, we should be able to make as much as we can out of our own country and within our own borders, because it might be some time before flights pick up again, and we go back. And I hope we don't go back to the exact old habits. I think we do need some sort of a correction, in the same way as the recession back in 2008 was a correction, because we were running away with buying properties and over investing, and there was no backup. We're now, we have been taking advantage of the planet for some time, and it feels a bit like a correction from Mother Nature.
Okay.
Wishing us to stop and
the other thing that I think will be awful, I suppose, nearly like after the AIDS tragedy, dating. I mean, I knew you obviously from a previous life, and I know you've an absolutely gorgeous girlfriend now. And but when you think, Colm, it's going to definitely throw that into disarray, I would have thought, for a while anyway, because the dating agencies and the Tinders and all that sort of stuff, like, people will be terrified for a while, just for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
I suppose, you know.
Yeah, well, physical contact is you'll almost need a certificate of cleanliness or negativity before you can meet someone. So, yeah, I know that's all those things that we've taken for granted. You know,
yeah.
My brother had a baby girl last week, and so been able to meet her. So she's we've seen pictures and we've seen little videos.
Yeah.
My mother's dying to meet us, the first granddaughter in the family. So physical contact, whether it be dating, whether it be meeting people, or whether it be welcoming new additions to the family. I was also I broke the rules and I went to a funeral at the beginning of last week. My friend's mother died, not from COVID-19. She was ill for a while, and we stood outside the church, you know, a few meters apart, and then we went to the graveyard and just stood back from the family, just to show our face and just to show that we were there to support. So these sort of,
it's so
say that again.
It's so not Irish, you know. It's not
those
two things.
It isn't. But it's been a bit bizarre to experience a birth and a death in this time, and to see how it affects us, and how we can't embrace someone, we can't shake hands, and all. We take for granted. So dating will be like cruise ships or restaurants or planes or cinemas. Dating will take as much of a hit as well, you know.
Well, listen, we can't keep going on, or I can't. These things get too long to put up, and I just want to thank you for coming on and I'm doing these chats every morning, just with different people that are involved in my previous life and my current. Right. And it's just lovely to talk to you, and I wish you all the best, because you're in a difficult business.
You too.
We'll do everything we can, Colm, to support our Irish and our local businesses and your own business. So the best of luck with your new restaurant.
Best of luck with the new arrival, I believe, with Sophie.
Yes, I'm going to be a granny in July, and so she's got a big bump, and she's looking gorgeous and blooming and all that. But hard, it's a bit tricky. It's just a worrying time till the baby's out and safe and all that. But yeah.
Sure.
But listen, gorgeous to see you, and the best of luck, Colm, going forward. If there's anything we can do to help or attend or anything like that, okay. See you.
Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.